All right, on today's video, we're going to talk about how to get instantly inspired by Instacomposer and how you can set it up quick, run through all those great presets, and we'll take a look at those, and how you can then just throw it into your DAW and instantly start working with that inspiration. So let's take a look at how this all works. So we've talked about Instacomposer a couple times before, but today we're going to look at some of the deeper aspects and how it can be used for inspiration really quickly. And I think one of the best aspects about Instacomposer is the presets. And these presets, if you look here on screen, there are a lot of them in 3 banks. So you have Factory 1, Factory 2, Factory 3. And then you have a bonus with different time signatures, and these different bonus time signatures are all really beautiful. Very inspiring, and they take you off the beaten path to kind of expand your idea palette. So what we're going to do is just go through some of these quickly, how I have it set up, and then I'm going to show you how to set it up for yourself so that you can just start Instacomposer and start working. Now, a lot of these presets are very musical, especially in the light coming from orchestral music, because they use different time signatures and they just really inspire you, and you have the ability to start with these chords but then really change them up with all the recommended in green, or you could go off the beaten track and try anything. But it gives you so many different ways to take an inspired idea even further. So having said that, let's just go through some of these quickly. When you do have it set up right, you just have to play the hit the play button and off you go. So we load one up, and we'll start with this one, and just hit go. And you can just hit another preset up here with the arrow button. So all of these are just so beautiful to start with, and you can just drag them out. You can drag them all at all 5 tracks with this drag button down here. But really, say you just wanted to have the upper strings here, the first track. You just wanted, instead of just minors, you wanted it to have a suspended second, or let's say a 7th suspended, or let's just keep it a little bit simple with a minor 7th. But you just want the upper track to be minor 7th. You make sure that's selected, the upper track, and since this has been changed to minor 7th, then you hit go, and just the top track gets changed. And now that's changed, and now you can play that, and you'll see this a little more sophisticated up here on the first track. So, and of course, there's so many different things you can do to change it, but that's where you start from, all these great presets. And let's just go with some other presets here. To change it, use that arrow up here. And you don't have to play it all. You can take the loop and change the loop amount. So we can go to the next one. Like I said, we're just pressing that arrow. And if you do make a change, then you'll have to hit that little button here. It gives you that pop-up. So in this case, the top one here, I think that's the one that I don't like. So just select it, hit go, and it will change. And you could change the settings here to make it more or less more population. And now we can listen to it again. It's actually the second track I'm not really digging, so change that one and add a little population to that too. And then hit play. And take it down an octave. And then just keep going through all these different Now say you kind of like these notes for whatever reason, but you don't like the chord progression that playing these notes. You can go to new chord progression, hit this button. Now it's a new chord progression, but the notes haven't changed. So the progression beneath it has changed, but the notes haven't changed. So if you had a chord, you could say that's the new chord progression down here. The notes are still the same. You can listen to it with the new chord progression with the notes over top. Now you notice that some of these notes don't mesh with these new chords here, but some of them are working nicely just by my ear. I like some of them, but some of the notes are off. But if you wanted all the notes to align or just one track, say now if I want this track 2 notes to align with this new chord progression, select just track 2, hit go, and they will be in line with the new chord progression. Say I like the middle the way it is, but I want track 4 to be in line, and now you can listen to it. So actually this track is still the old notes. So some of them won't mesh, but that may be what you want. So some of these notes are off. You could change them by hand, or you can, do the same thing. Go to track 3 and have it all aligned. So now they're all aligned to the new progression. And you can get, immediately more fancy and add some kind of jazzy harmonies up here. Hit the all button here so they will all align to this new chord here. So all these notes, all the notes will change, but these notes will change to the new chord which has the higher up the added harmony. So let's try that. Hit play. So, but let's say that you liked all the old notes and you just wanted these notes to be changed. The way I would do that is whenever you have something you like, because there's no go back button or reset button to the previous, but that's something they could add, which would be nice. But I would just take everything, you know, when you find something you like, drag it out using the drag all button. And if you drag it into your DAW, you'll get all those tracks, and so that you have that recorded into your DAW. And then you could change some of these chords to whatever flavors and make them more spicy. Then, you know, hit the all button again here so they all change, and then drag that also into your DAW. And then you can just take the bits and pieces that you like and cut and paste in your DAW. So that's how I would add spice with just certain parts of the tracks. All right, so here we have a completely blank slate to start with, and I'm going to rebuild this Instacomposer and the 5-track setup from scratch. So what first thing you want to do is go here and say that we want an Instacomposer. So we go down to the list, we drag that in, and we have our Instacomposer. It's blank, it's at its starting state. And we can drag this open a little bit. And now we want one instrument to play track 1. We want another instrument to play track 2, and 3, and 4, and 5. So we'll have 5 tracks, and we'll have 5 instruments to play those 5 tracks, all separately. So ideally, if we go from default here and say just load up a track here and say, let's make sure we have some data on lane 4. So we have different types of MIDI here. Short, fast notes up here, usually an ostinato or a riff up here. Again, track 2 is usually a riff or some kind of short note. Number 3 is almost always for the presets. It's usually a bass, which we want just short, simple bass notes here. And that by default is usually in a lower octave. And for track 4, usually there's some kind of pad notes, which are longer or semi-long notes. Something like attaché, legato, or even a long note. And then track 5 is always the chord track, or almost always the chord track, which is just long sustained notes for that. So really what we want is 5 different instruments with different articulations. Track 1, since we're using strings as a demo here, track 1 should be, you know, like staccato short strings. Same for track 2, with maybe violin 2 with a short articulation staccato. And track 3 will be any kind of bass instrument, and for strings that would be cello or double bass. And for 4 would be attaché or legato, and again for sustains for the long chord notes. So let's do that next. So for the first instrument, I'm going to grab what I like to use for strings is the Vienna Synchron player. So I'll drag in that. That loads up to its default screen, and we're going to go with Synchron Elite Strings. And if we go to this section here, the tutti passages here, presets, that means that it will fill this keyboard with all the different strings for, you know, a full orchestra sound as far as strings are concerned. So we're going to use that. We could go and, you know, do the violins, and maybe today we will do that. So let's do that. Let's double click that. That loads in our first violins, and we said that we want short notes, staccato, and we can go agile, and that will load up that exact type of sound that we want there. And we're going to make sure velocity is available from within the application and not from the keyboard. So we can just turn that off. And what I like to do so that none of these key switches here are activated by mistake is I just go up here and turn all these to none. And that's exactly what I get there. So now it has just the keys available to be triggered without any key switches to mistakenly be triggered. So that's our first track. And what we want to do is we want to make sure that it's set to Instacomposer. So for this new track, we can turn on the monitor and we can go down here and we can say we want Instacomposer to drive this track. And we've all done that before, and that's very simple. But the next thing we need to do is make sure that only track 1 notes go to this instrument number 1. And we can rename this and just say VSL violins 1 short. So we know what it is. And what we're going to do next here is simply that. We're going to filter out all the other notes and just have track 1, because by default in Cubase, Instacomposer is going to send all 5 tracks of MIDI notes to track instrument 1. It's going to send all 5 tracks worth of MIDI notes to instrument 2, to instrument 3, and 4. So you're going to get all these doubling of notes, and it's just going to be a mess. So we need to filter out tracks 2, 3, 4, and 5, and just let track 1 go to track 1 here. So the way we're going to do that is up next. Now, one way to filter out the notes for every track is to simply use this button up here. Now, WA has done a video on this, but they didn't go into detail exactly how to do this, all the steps inside of Cubase. So it's a good idea to maybe show you how to do that now. So we want to use this button here. It's the input transformer for every track. So we hit this button for our track 1 instrument. We turn it to local. And when we do that and hit this again, we should have that interface, and it might be hidden behind here. And there it is. So for now, I'm going to move this aside and move this aside. And we have the input transformer for track 1. And really all we want to do is filter channels. So first of all, we can turn on the module number 1 here, so activate that to get that blue light on. Go down to the plus sign, turn that on so we get an instruction line set up here. Type is channel and equal, unequal. So channel unequal to 1. Which means basically any channel unequal to 1 will be filtered, and we turn this to filter. And that's all set up. So now we can give this a name to make it a preset. So we go store preset, and we can call this channel 1 filter or something like pass. So channel 1 pass. So we know that this preset will pass channel 1's notes. So you could come up with a better name than that. I think in their video they name it better. But so channel 1 notes will pass, and that's the preset. So we can turn this off, and it's on because it's yellow. And so now we've made it so that only channel 1's notes are going to pass into this new instrument. All right, so we can do the same for the rest of the instruments, and we can do it quicker because we can now click on this, say duplicate, and we can just double click on this and change the name of it to VSL violins 2, and it's still going to be shorts. And we can change this now. First of all, this will already be set to Instacomposer, so that's already done for us. This is already turned on, but we can turn it and activate the interface. And all we have to do here is change this now to number 2 for track number 2, and it's all set up. So that's already done for us. And then we can go down here and we can say duplicate again. and we can say it's going to be VSL, we'll just say bass for now, but you can of course name these more intelligently. And again, it's set up, input's already set, and its transformer is just set. We just turn it on and we go change this to 3 for track number 3 to let just the bass notes come in, and it's filtering, and that is set up. And now I'm just going to do it for the other 2, and then we'll come back and show you some more things. Alright, so now I have all the tracks set up the way I like and named the way I like, and each one corresponds to a track inside of Instacomposer. And let's just take a look at what instruments I actually picked. So for track 1, which would be violins 1, I just used a staccato short agile. Now, in something like the Orchestra Complete 2, you could simply use violins 1 set to a staccato articulation. That'll work really well. And then for track 2, I ended up with violins 2 staccato and switched it to bold. And again, in something like the Orchestra Complete 2, you could use the violins 2 with staccato. That'll work fine. And then for track 3, which is usually a bass track, I'm just using the double bass set to staccato. And again, in something like the Orchestra Complete, you could use just the double bass set to staccato articulation. And again, it could be any library that has simple articulations for strings. So it doesn't have to be VSL at all. It could be anything. And then for the 4th track, I simply got the pad set up to a long note espressivo, something with a little vibrato, a little bit of passion for these longer notes in the pads. In the case of the orchestra, you could use something like a long sustained string note, so long sustained strings. And then for the 5th track, which is a chord track, I want to use a 2D preset here, which is all the strings, all on one keyboard. Which gives your whatever chords that Instacomposers is going to generate, it will give you a full string sound there. And if you wanted to replicate that idea in something like the Orchestra Complete 2, you could use full strings sustain preset. That will work just fine. So those are the instruments I chose, and next we're going to play some of the presets and just talk a little bit more about Instacomposer. Alright, so since we have one track corresponding to one track in Instacomposer and they're all separate, there's a lot of things we can do. First of all, we just hit the play button. And right off the bat, we get pretty good results, but we can fine-tune it in many different ways because now we have every track is separate, and each one of these instruments, we can change the articulation, and we can change we could, you know, if we didn't want all strings, we could add some horns, we could add some woodwinds. So we're really just getting to that fun place now where we can change things how we like. But first off, if you listen here with this first test preset here, you notice that not all the tracks are playing. So let's fix that quick. So we see that the bass and the pads aren't playing because first of all, there is no data generated for the pad track, and the bass track, I would say, is maybe too low for our chosen instrument, but let's bring it up an octave and see if it will play now. Oh, I see the issue, and it's maybe something that you might stumble upon, and just make sure that's not muted, that any tracks are not muted. So let's bring it back down the octave, and now we'll have our bass playing. So great. Now we have that nice bass kind of being played in the background there. And for track 4, the pads that just weren't generated for whatever reason in this preset 00 here, we can generate it. Just highlight number 4, activate it, and just generate some pad notes for this track. And now that should play as long as it's in a register that our instrument will hear. And all right, beautiful. We have our full orchestra playing, and now we can simply go to anywhere and start playing any preset, and we should get good results for a starting point. And you have to remember that that's what I think Instacomposer really where it shines. With these presets and a setup like this where you can go through the hundreds of presets, and from what I've gone through a lot of them, and really you can get some great ideas out of these presets, and you can tweak them to get even more out of them. You can tweak the notes, you can tweak how the chords are generated, each one, so you could spice it up with a 7th on this chord here, and then you could just regenerate track 1, so the notes on track 1, if you hit go, then just those notes on track 1 will be changed and updated because they change every time. Like every note on this track will change, but these notes here on this bar will be changed for this new little spicy 7th harmony added there. So, but if you didn't want all the notes changed, just this bar's notes, you would drag that out first before you change this and then change it inside your DAW. But regardless, you have endless ways you can change and make all these notes work for you. So let's play this. And that's beautiful inspiration right there. And if you wanted to, you could make this larger. So you could make it the full length available. You could switch this to set it to all. So all the tracks will be generated. But at this point, if you could just drag it out, if you like this original idea, because it's going to change when I hit go. All the notes will change, but it will stay within this chord progression idea. But whenever I hear something I like inside Instacomposer, I will go to drag all and drag it all into my DAW just to be safe so that I have a backup. Ideally, inside Instacomposer, they said they're going to keep updating it and adding new options in here, and they're going to update and really keep working on this program. So I would like to see an undo button or a save. You can save these tracks in many different ways. You can save each track separately. So they already have great ways to save, and you can just drag everything out. But even if they just added a quick undo button so you could just go back to something you like, but regardless. So let's keep on moving forward here and continue to just see our new options. So let's say that we like this, we dragged out a backup copy, but now we're going to hit go, and we're going to fill, we want to fill all this up, and we just hit go, but what happened? It didn't fill everything up. The reason why is because your loop point has to also be moved. So once we do that, now we hit go, we get it all full up with notes. So now we can try out our new generated idea. So it's so versatile at this point. We can just activate the top notes of the melody up here, and we could say, well, these aren't enough melody notes. We could go to general, and we could say, well, we have a button here that says less or more population. Let's say yes, we want more population, and we're only affecting track number 1. So make sure you got track 1, and now you hit go, and we'll have more melody notes. Still not enough. Let's go to more, and let's have them stick to the chord mainly. Now we're getting more of what we want for our melody. Now let's listen to that. Now you see right here that it just repeats too much. I would rather have it step up and do a little bit more movement here than just repeat, repeat, repeat. Then you can just double click on there and it goes into the editor. And we can see that repeating little pattern there. And you could take one of these notes and you could move it there. So you can move it up and have some more movement with that, so that it's just not just full on repeating. So now we can go back into the editor and you can see there's a little more movement there. And now let's play that. Yeah, and that's just what I wanted, a little extra up movement there. So then we can take this whole thing, hitting this drag button here. You can drag each one separately with these separate drag buttons, or everything all at once. And if we hit drag, we can drag it into our DAW and move this out of the way for now. And sometimes when I drag it in, I'm not sure why, but it overlaps on track 1. So let's just select everything, move it down, and take this and just move that. For whatever reason, it's putting number 1 on number 2. No problem. But now we have that in our DAW. We can loop that correctly, start at the beginning. We can even turn off Instacomposer interface. We no longer need that. And we have just a starting point for an idea. So that's the video today. How to use the presets from Instacomposer, and you have to go through these presets. There's some real gems. In fact, most of them are very musical. And I would say the main reason why I made this video is I was surprised when I went back to check out all of these presets. As far as the point from a orchestral music point of view, very musical, a lot of great ideas in here. So whoever put these together, you know, I don't know if they were thinking of orchestral music when they did them, but they're very good for a starting point and very inspirational. And I would say for sure check out all these beautiful time signature ones that have different time signatures using the bars and the beats down here, which you can do yourself. You can create your own down here. But these were set up using different time signatures. And so be sure to check that out. And we'll catch you on the next video.